Welcome back to 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network. Josh Jordan, Chris Brown. My chair just broke during the break. There it is. I got a dining room table chair, essentially, and we're back. We're back. We're better than ever, ready to round out the show here on a Monday. Winners, losers from the weekend. Mr. Brown, did you go real simple? Is the winner the St. Louis Cardinals, or did you go somewhere else? Okay, hit me.
Odd implications. Just a quick shout out to Georgia Tech. It's like I said, not something with huge big picture impact. It just caught my attention. They had a huge 76-65 home win, beating 16 Florida State over the weekend. They snapped the Seminoles' 5-game winning streak. Florida State, like there was a lot at stake for, not a lot. There was a good bit at stake for them, right? They could with the win, they could have tied with Virginia for first place in the ACC. Now they're chasing both Virginia schools. So props to the Yellow Jackets on their gritty performance. They're ahead of some teams like Seton Hall and Auburn in the net rankings right now. It's a pretty experienced group, a pretty resilient group. Again, nothing huge, broad, crazy takeaway, but I just wanted to give a little shout out there to Georgia Tech.
Hey Josh, can I go ahead and put $100 on the bet that you have Florida State as your loser?
I don't.
Dang it. Oh. Okay. Darn.
Well,
okay.
Don't put the $100.
Well, then never mind. I take it back.
However, Virginia Tech is my winner.
Nice.
Very nice.
They scored 44 second half points against Virginia. That in and of itself is pretty impressive. They shot 50% from the field against Virginia. Also impressive in the 66-51 win. But it's also because of the other implications, because of that Georgia Tech game that Chris just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We came into this thing, at least I did, going Virginia, Florida State, that's it. I'm really high on this Florida State team. Virginia's doing what Virginia does in ACC play. And all of a sudden, this thing is wide open again, and Virginia Tech is right there. Now you have a head-to-head win against Virginia. Again, not too much to add. They've been a good team all season, but there's a difference between being a good team and being really in the conversation for this ACC regular season championship. And at this point, you got to say that's where they are. So my winner's the Hokies.
My winner is the teams that were chasing Virginia in the ACC.
Oh, look at that.
For basically, now Florida State really goofed, and losing a game like that, you just can't lose a game like that when you're trying to chase Virginia. But right, if Virginia wins this game against Virginia Tech, they're 8-0 with the closest competitor behind them, Virginia Tech. It's Florida State at 6-2. Virginia Tech would be 6-3 along with North Carolina, who's also 6-3. And then at that point, I find it hard to believe that's anybody's catching Virginia. When the rest of their schedule is NC State, Louisville, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, they play at Florida State still, but Duke, Pitt, Miami, Louisville. It's not exactly the most tough. It's not exactly the toughest schedule remaining. Mm-hmm. I would almost go all the way to saying that this weekend saved any hope that anybody other than Virginia has of winning the ACC. Mm-hmm. So they're my winner for that reason, because if Virginia wins that game, they're 8-0 in conference. They're 2.5 game and a half ahead of their next competitor. I guess 2 games. There just weren't enough games left on the schedule against good teams for Virginia to lose enough to catch up with them. So the conversation is different. Virginia Tech's only half a game back. Florida State's just a game back, and things are still certainly up in the air for that conference. So the ACC teams not named Virginia that still have aspirations of winning the ACC. Nice concise title there for you. They're my winner.
What the acronym?
I'll work on it here. While Chris tells us who his loser is. I'll work on that title.
All right. So Wisconsin is my loser.
Ouch.
Yeah. Preseason top 10 team. They're now 3-3 in their last 6 games. They're just 5-4 in their last 9 games. They lost at Penn State over the weekend, and that was Penn State's first win against Wisconsin in 10 years. The last time that Penn State beat Wisconsin was 2011, and the game ended 36-33.
Yep.
Just random tidbit of the day. This is now the 4th time this season that Wisconsin has lost when they were a favorite. And one thing that's really uncharacteristic about it is that their defense fell short again. And I'm saying again because it's happened multiple times in this stretch, and that's not something we're really expected to be saying about Wisconsin. They gave up a season high 81 points in this game, and they just could not. They're still, I think, ranked relatively high in defensive efficiency. But what they're doing, and what I can't say I've been following super close attention to Wisconsin, but what I'm reading about and what I see from this game against Penn State is that they may be a good overall defensive team, but they're letting opponents just go on these runs, and they're just like occasionally just huge defensive lapses. Against Penn State, Wisconsin was never able to get more than 3 stops together, and they only got to 3 stops in a row defensively because of a pair of free throws. Like, they were never able to get these, like, they're going on these runs, they're letting opponents go on these runs and just sort of run all over them, and then by the time they recover, it's too late. I mean, this is still a very good Wisconsin team. Like, I'm not saying that it's, hopeless or they're in trouble, but relative to expectations, it's not great right now. They've got some real issues. They're fixable, but it's not the team people thought necessarily in terms of consistency coming into the season.
And that's exactly why I picked Wisconsin. The inverse of that is exactly why I picked Wisconsin to win the Big Ten, is because I thought Wisconsin was the team that had proven themselves enough to win the games that they're supposed to win and to always play good defense and to just do things right and come out with enough wins against these other teams at the top of the Big Ten, like Iowa, like Illinois, who weren't really, who aren't experienced in trying to win this conference. Wisconsin just hasn't done that to the level that I thought they were going to do it. You can't give up 81 points if you're Wisconsin. Their offense just isn't that explosive. They were 7 of 28 from the 3-point line. They've got some of these losses this year that they just shouldn't have. I mean, they're fine. They're still a top 15 at KenPom team. It's not like this is a bad basketball team, but this isn't the team that's putting together the season that I thought they would put together in terms of the scope of the Big Ten and the scope of just beating the teams that I thought they should beat, right? I mean, you lose at home to Ohio State, and it wasn't really that close. You lose at Penn State. I don't care where it is. You shouldn't lose to Penn State this year. You've got that home loss to Maryland. Those are just losses that I didn't think Wisconsin was going to have this year. I like to think that I've been fairly right about Illinois and Iowa and the fact that they don't always win those Big Ten games that I think that they should win. But also Wisconsin's right in that same boat, and to a certain degree, even further into the boat than those other teams are, because those other 2 teams have more, high-end talent.
Right.
But Wisconsin, I just thought was the team that I could always bet on to be consistent and always win at home and always beat the teams that they were supposed to beat, and that just hasn't been the case this year.
Plus, that Marquette loss is just looking worse and worse and worse.
Oh yeah, because Marquette's not good, or at least, right. So you can throw that right after Wisconsin lost to Marquette. We were talking about Marquette as maybe the team that could be the 3rd best team in the Big East, and that's clearly not the case either. Yeah. So it's not like that one has turned into a phenomenal loss either. Josh, who's your loser?
I want to rant about Marcos Alonso for a second. So my loser is Frank Lampard. Bear with me. I'm going to tell you a story.
Please. Well, we already had our movie review commercial. We'll end it with story time. Let's go.
That's right.
So Marcos Alonso plays for Chelsea. He's had a very successful career. Started on a Premier League winning team in a specific system, which allows him to play next to 3 center backs, as a left-sided wing-back midfielder guy who doesn't have a lot of defensive responsibilities because he doesn't really play defense.
Of course, naturally.
After title-winning team sort of broke up, Antonio Conte left as their manager. Frank Lampard comes in after the weird Mauricio Sarri season, and Frank Lampard decides we're going to play 4 at the back, meaning Marcos Alonso no longer has 3 center backs to help cover his defensive issues.
Shortcomings.
Unsurprisingly, Marcos Alonso was not a good left back in a 4-back system. Frank Lampard got so mad at him that on September 26th against West Brom, after they gave up 3 first-half goals, most of which were directly Alonso's fault, he pulled him at halftime, Alonso then allegedly, instead of watching the rest of the game with his team, went to go take a shower and went to the team bus. Lampard got so mad at him that people thought he would never play for Chelsea again. Well, Lampard got fired, so Thomas Tuchel comes in. Thomas Tuchel puts Marcos Alonso right back on the bench, and then this weekend he started him in over Ben Chilwell, who was Lampard's big signing, the big sparkling left back, who's one of the English international, who's supposed to be the
sparkling,
who's supposed to be the guy. Thomas Tuchel said, "I want Marcos Alonso out there." You know what Marcos Alonso did? What he always does. He scored a good goal.
Did he give up for him, or did he? What?
No, because he went back to playing a back three. He played him in his natural position.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's the other important detail. Sorry,
okay, gotcha.
I got too excited. Yeah, he said we're going to a three at the back, and I'm going to play Marcos Alonso where he belongs, and he scored a goal. Sometimes it's just not that hard, people. This man is very good. I'm a huge fan. You either need to move him to a team that will fully appreciate his skills, or start playing a system that actually fits him and makes him useful, because he's just not a useful part of your team if he's playing as a left back, and he's one of your best 11 players. I'm just very upset about the way he's been treated. So from September 26th to last week, he was exiled, was not part of the team at all. He came in, scored a goal. Good for you, Marcos Alonso. It's just not that hard sometimes.
And scene. That was impressive. Yeah, sometimes you need to stop trying to fix what you have and right, sometimes you just don't have good players, and sometimes you're just trying to make good players what they're not. Mm-hmm. And that seems like it's the case over there in Chelsea. My loser's Jared Goff.
Down.
Because not only did Jared Goff go from the Rams to the Lions, ricochet shot at the Lions, yes. But Jared Goff is in a near impossible situation. Let me tell you why. Jared Goff is a average quarterback right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right, there are probably 14 better quarterbacks, 14 worse quarterbacks, 15 worse, roughly, 16 better, something like that.
10 definitely on either side. Yeah.
Right. So he's average.
Mm-hmm.
Average quarterbacks are interchangeable. So average quarterbacks have no leverage. He's in a place where you're already, like Chris said it earlier, the Lions got Jared Goff, but they still could go and draft a quarterback in the first round. And there are a lot of good ones in this draft, right? There are 4 or 5 really solid quarterbacks that you could talk yourself into giving a chance to them over Jared Goff, especially after what he's been the last 2-3 years since the Super Bowl. It's a bad football team. No quarterback is impressive on a bad football team. Except for Deshaun Watson. So
and a bad football team that is on that just handed the coach a 6-year contract and is clearly dedicated to a long-term rebuild.
Right. So there's literally there's no spot for him to be impressive right now. And how do you get another job in the NFL? You be impressive. And it's just and Goff is not he's not Deshaun Watson. Right, he excels when there are a lot of good guys around him and he's in the right situation. There are not a lot of good guys around him, and like you said, Josh, the Lions aren't trying to win now. My point is, and why he's a loser in winners and losers. Wow, that was like a clickbait quote. Sports talking head calls Jared Goff a straight up loser. But it's impossible for he's never going to get to the spot. It is going to be very hard for him to get to the point in his career again where he was thought of even remotely close to the way he was thought of when the Rams were, going to the Super Bowl. Because they're going to be more quarterbacks. It's just going to be harder it's going to be hard to gain traction again. Because the Lions could be bad for another 5 years, right? So either it's Jared Goff on a bad football team, and he won't be as impressive as Matthew Stafford. He just won't be, unless something changes. He could just get passed up by a rookie anyways. And then the teams that are looking for average quarterbacks and just sort of playing musical chairs with quarterbacks are the bad football teams. The Jets.
They don't want to spend that.
The Jaguars.
They don't want to spend that much money on an average quarterback.
Right. Jared Goff's my loser. Jared Goff went from a team that uber talented everywhere else except quarterback. So you're going to play in a competitive division and playing important football games, going to the playoffs, or at least having aspirations of it, to a Detroit Lions team that is just not in that spot. And Jared Goff might never be in that spot again unless he stumbles into it. So he's my loser.
Yeah, he's going to have to be really impressive to be slightly impressive.
Right.
Like, he's going to have to be really, really good. He can't just be like, get a bit better, because on that kind of team, right, it's not going to show up as, oh, he's making strides. He's going to have to make like huge strides for it to show up enough that a team is really going to believe he's turned it around enough for him to get a shot somewhere where it's actually interesting for him.
I guess the bright side is sort of, if you flip that, if he does perform well, it's a reflection of Jared Goff.
Sure.
That it can't be a reflection of, oh, Sean McVay is really helping him and he's got these weapons and that's a really good football team. That if he can make it, he has a clean slate here.
Sure.
If he can make this work, it's going to do wonders for him. But he has to your point, Josh, he has to make it work. And it's not like I'm very curious exactly how the Lions feel about him.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to, if you're going to,
yeah.
Right. If you're going to say, Matt, that Jared Goff is our guy, you got to be incredibly confident with the amount of money that is now owed to him with this contract. If it's a short-term solution thing where you give him a year, for example, you draft Trey Lance, who may not be ready right away, then okay. But then you're in the position that the Eagles were in this season and still are, of if Carson Wentz isn't your starter, you can't pay your backup that much money.
Right.
So it's a difficult spot, but I guess you can sort of flip it and say, if he does this, Jared Goff is going to really help his stock.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, what are the odds that he's actually able to pull it off?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. He's going to have to be really impressive, and it's going to have to be all because of him. And I'm just not sure he's capable of that. And because if he, I just don't see somebody who's impressive to that degree based on what I've seen with the Rams the last 24 months or so. Thank you so much for joining us here on a Monday at 1:10 Daily, making us a part of your day. We'll be back, as of right now, we'll be back on Friday. If something crazy happens between now and then, we'll hop on here and chat about it. But as of right now, we'll be back on Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, right here, twitch.tv/110sports. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you right back here on Friday.